We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
Welcome back to another episode of Best Hour of Their Day. We are your hosts, Jason Ackerman, Jason Fernandez. Today, we're chatting about opening a box in 2007 versus 2020. So for the record, I opened my first affiliate in 2007. Fern, when did you open yours?
2009.
2009.
Yep, 2009.
What would you say was when did CrossFit go, mainstream? There's always that expression, you and I actually, the one common bond that we have, the only thing we have in common, in fact, is our enjoyment of the Dave Matthews Band.
That's a fair assessment.
and I think anyone that listens to a kind of a small band and watches them blow up and go places kind of gets frustrated. It's like, oh man, I used to be able to see them at this little dive bar and Dave knew who I was. Now I got to go to a 20,000 seat arena to see them. So that for the Dave Matthews Band was around 1996. Under the Table and Dreaming comes out. Ants Marching hits it big on the radio. But when do you think that was for CrossFit?
I think like around 2012 is when it started to break on the scene. But if you look at the trends for seminars and when seminars were like started to pick up, it was 2013, 2014. That's what I think. Those are like the highest numbers, I believe.
So I suppose you're saying what we're basing it on is really when you would say, because 2013, 14, that seems late to me.
That's why I said 2012, because that's when the games started to really kind of get some traction. I believe 2012 is when maybe 2011 when they went to Home Depot Center.
No, I think 10. I think 2010, because that was what Austin's first year at the games. I don't know if you remember wearing the all white skins.
Oh yeah, I do.
Outfit.
Yeah.
I think that was 2010. And if you go back and watch that, there's like a dozen people in the arena. The next year it's sold out. I remember watching it in our building. Austin had just started coaching for us, and we kind of had it streaming from. It might have just been in like the Journal at the time before it was on major channels. So yeah, I guess I would equate it to when the general population began to realize they can do CrossFit.
Yeah, that's why I say 2012. Like there was a ton of gyms at that point, and CrossFit was you're starting to seeing on major networks at that point. So by that standard, I would say it's mainstream.
So people are commenting. By the way, this is the first time we've ever gone live to Facebook while recording the podcast. People are commenting about the Dave Matthews Band, seeing them in Saratoga Springs. I saw them they played at University at Albany, my alma mater, back when 100 people would sign up. And then, the next year I had to go travel to like the Meadowlands for 70,000 people. And I think, you were around then. What was your feeling as that was happening with CrossFit?
I don't know that I had a feeling. It was something that I was still kind of, it was all still very new. Like I was just like, it was cool. And that was literally it. It was cool. It was how I was training. I was, it was my avenue or outlet for competition since I had left sports at that point.
We know you graduated D1.
I wasn't going to say it, but you
Naval
did.
Academy, Annapolis.
You're literally the only one that ever brings that up.
I'm proud of you. Teammates with David Robinson.
No, I was not teammates with David Robinson.
You used to alley-oop with him, right? You used to pass him the ball.
That is a total incorrect use of the term alley-oop, by the way.
What are you drinking?
That was as cringy as when somebody makes a reference to shooting a jump shot at the level 1 seminar and they pantomime the jump shot and inside my heart just melts because I'm just like, what are you doing right now? Like, that is not how you shoot a jump shot.
I do that every weekend for the medicine ball clean. I'm like, watch me.
Yeah. And then everybody's just like, what the fuck?
And then no one opens their hips.
Yeah.
What are you drinking right there? Is that coffee?
Coffee. One of my members gave me this. It says "Stay off Fern's beverage."
Oh, I like that. And you got a Fern hat on. Look at you. You're
It's a
brand.
New Zealand All Blacks hat. It's a New Zealand All Blacks hat.
You're a brand in and of itself.
I am a brand in and of itself.
I'm considering getting a pour over setup. What do you think about that?
Like buying a setup kit.
Well, it's not really. I mean, you buy a gooseneck thing, you buy a Chemex, some filters.
If by what do I think that you have plenty of time because you don't do shit, then yes, you should get a pour over setup.
It's actually in an effort to be more efficient.
Yeah. Is that what pour over is? More efficient?
It's hipster.
Did Todd it's hipster for sure. It's definitely not more efficient.
What's your coffee routine? How do you make your coffee in the morning?
We just have a like a Jura coffee maker.
Is that like a one-shotter type thing?
You could do 1 shot, 2 shots, 1 cup, 2 cups. You can steam it. You can do a bunch of different stuff. It was
but like a pod-based system?
No. It's you put beans in it and it grinds. So it's grinds to, what's the word I'm looking for?
Your preference, like based on what?
Yeah, so it only grinds enough for what you're gonna make for coffee.
Look at you, that Fernandez money, man. That mansion in Virginia Beach. You gotta
no. So now the Jura is an expensive coffee maker. I will tell you. I want to say it's like $1,000, and this is 10 years ago, so it's probably more than that now for the new ones. But we got that for our wedding. So people are like, what do you want? I was just like, I want these super sick, culinary knives, and then gift cards. So we got like all these gift cards to like, I forgot, like Bed Bath and Beyond and all these other places. And then we bought this coffee maker, which we use, I don't know, a dozen times a day for the past 10 years. So
yeah, isn't it? We have the same thing. You get all these things you don't need for your wedding, and I'm sure we're going to get similar stuff for the baby. And then it's like 1 or 2 of those things you use every day. The rest kind of sit in your closet.
Oh, I sent a picture of it to Andrea Smith the other day because we got some of her coffee from Misha's. So if you're in Alexandria, go to Misha's. But she was like, "What? Do you have beans or whatever?" And I sent it. She's like, "Oh, that's a good coffee maker." And I was like, "All right, coming from the lady with regard to coffee." I was like, I feel better about myself.
Well, when I'm staying at your house in a little while, I expect a strong, big cup of coffee.
You are never welcome in my house.
So I'm staying in Logan's room. We're gonna have a good party, and then we're getting coffee.
Just for the record, as a new dad, that sounded super creepy.
Yeah. All right, I'll stay with Chappie.
Yeah. It's not any less creepy.
So, tell me about this. I'll go after you, but what do you think has been the biggest change for you as a coach from the day you opened in 2009 to 2020?
As a coach?
Yeah, I want to talk about the differences in opening then. Obviously, that's the topic. But before we get to that, as a coach, where has your biggest evolution been?
Oh, God, that is such a loaded question. I mean, the professionalism of what I do is probably like the broadest possible answer I could give to that, which in short is literally everything. I don't know that there's anything that I do the same that I did 10 years ago. It was really bad.
I mean, let's assume we both improved as coaches. And so when you say professionalism, do you just simply mean your ability to see and correct, or do you truly mean like, okay, I don't curse as much, I'm more professional? All of it.
Like, that's what I said. There is literally, I use the word literally too much, but this I do mean quite literally. Is there nothing the same about what other than maybe have fun? So I still have fun doing both, 10 years ago and today, but virtually everything else is completely different. How I approach it, how I prep for classes, my reason for being there, and my understanding for my reason for being there, my intent to connect with people, how I go about structuring warm-ups and scaling and seeing and correcting. And I mean, to steal some words from Joe DeGaines, I'm embarrassed of the coach I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think recently I came home from coaching here at the box, and I came home and I was just like, Roz, oftentimes when I get home from coaching, I'm like brain dead, but at the same time excited and want to talk about it. And I think the biggest evolution for me was, I would put it like this. In 2007, coaching was about me. In 2020, it's about everybody else. And part of that is, Roz said this to me when I got home. She's like, "You're just empathetic now." And yeah, what I was getting at for me, it's kind of like the music analogy. Like, this was, I got into the Grateful Dead when I was a teenager, but it was like, there was a song called Touch of Grey that came out, and it was the band's first #1 hit, and it really took them from this band that people followed and had a deep devotion to people were hearing one song, and now all of a sudden they're showing up at the concerts and changing the entire culture of Deadheads. And I was, I was one of them to some extent. I was a teenager, and I eventually really got into them, and I can prove it by how much pot I smoked back in the day. But you same was true with Dave Matthews. Like the new wave of people that showed up, and you're like, look, Ants Marching. You don't know Jimmy Thing. You don't know, the song that Jane likes. You don't know all of these, deep cuts from their old albums. And the same was true with kind of the way I treated CrossFit. Not that you didn't deserve to come in, but it was very much like, this is CrossFit and this is how you do it.
Yeah, if I was to really sum it up just very simply, I just liked to work out when I first started. I wasn't anything that would actually resemble a coach. But now I'm a coach. People come to me for a whole host of reasons, and that is what I consider to be a coach.
Yeah, I think, and you still see that to this day. Many of the newer coaches start because they're either good athletes and their box owners are like, hey, we need a new coach, or they're good athletes. They enjoy the accolades and the recognition they're getting at the box, and they want to take it to the coaches get even more recognition, where that's not why you do it. But I came home the other day from coaching, and I was just like really content with the fact that I was helping people, not to be cliche, but have the best hour of their day. And that's what it's become, every box has the same cast of characters. And, there's always the person in the box that doesn't want to push hard. There's the person in the box that, regardless of the movement, they grab 75 pounds, whether it's snatching, deadlifting, or, a Turkish getup. Like, this is the weight I use, and in the past it would be, no, you don't understand. This is what you should be doing. This is how you should be getting it. This is you need to feel like you're going to die and throw up, and, all these things, where now it's more like, what's going to make you feel good when you leave here? And I'm really rewarded by that. And I think if you're coaching in 2020, that's why you need to be doing this.
No, I agree. I would say, like, as far as my understanding, probably the biggest gap or the biggest leap that I've made is a profound increase in my understanding of intensity. That's probably, if I was to try to what measurement of anything that we were going to measure with regard to when I started CrossFit 10 years ago and today, it is my understanding of that and how it works and how it should be handled. And that is probably, what leads me to be, a remotely mildly effective coach at this point. So
now we're talking about coaching and the evolution of coaching. And I still think that's not at the point where everyone is. I think more and more coaches still need to get there. I still see coaches that do this thing, and it's more about them than their members. But we talk about that in Affiliate University. We talk about coaches development in Affiliate University. Of course, you can reach out to us about that, but that's not what we're here to talk about right now. Let's talk about the difference in opening in 2007 or 2009 versus 2020. What are you smirking at?
It's a funny thought. Matt Miller put on here, was like, when I saw your recommendation, use the leaf blower. There's probably only one thing that's still the same. There's probably only one thing that's still the same about opening an affiliate 10 years ago and today, which is the application process. You have to take your level 1 and then you put an application. Everything else is different. you know, the economics of it is different. How you structure it is different. There's almost nothing the same about it, with the exception of the core principles of CrossFit. And even that, to some degree, has been, in my opinion, softly molded in a lot of areas to something that it's quasi not.
You know, and the reason I wanted to have this topic today is because we've had multiple people, but just this morning we had another person reach out to us in regards to affiliate university saying, hey, I'm opening my box and I want you guys to be a part of this and help me get started. And that's really what sparked my interest, because I think in 2007 and 2009, there just wasn't that opportunity. And there was no coaching of affiliates. There was really, I remember when I opened, there was this dude, Jerry Hill. I want to say he was actually in Virginia. Do you know him?
Jerry Hill?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Old school CrossFitter. But basically, you know, for those that are unaware, back in the day, there was an affiliate forum. And I mean, I think it was just a forum on CrossFit. And you would I would relate it to like a fan club for a band. Like, you find CrossFit, you start going on there. And when there were so few affiliates, in 2007, I believe I was in the first 200, and you would say you're going to open, and other affiliate owners would give you kind of their best practices, but they weren't really, you know, tried and true, you know, things that work. There weren't systems. No one was saying, hey, by the way, you know, like I said, one of our new members of Affiliate University owns a box with his father, and his father's an accountant. And I said, that's one of the first pieces of advice I always give to new box owners. Like, get yourself an accountant, because you're not doing that right.
I was having that conversation with someone the other day, and, you know, they were doing what most people do when they get on the phone with us, and they were kind of beating themselves up about that. And the theme was, I just need to, you know, we really need to get better about going through this every day, every week, every month. To which my response was, no, you don't. You need to understand what the accountant sends you so that you are competent enough to say that doesn't make sense. We need to have a discussion about that. But you absolutely should not be going through line item by line item. I mean, maybe at some point, but you should, like, again, competence, not complete ownership of that with regard to your accounting. Even if you're an accountant, I don't think you should do that.
Well, yeah, right. Even, you know, we spoke about that on a recent episode where we said, what do box owners need to give up first? And that's one of those things. If you're hiring a professional, give that up. Like, hire someone you trust. You know, maybe look at the numbers, have a vague idea of, okay, we grossed X, we spent this, I should have this much money left. It makes sense that I'm paying this much in taxes. But other than that, if you're paying for an accountant, yeah, you don't need to have a credits and debit sheet that you're doing to double check this accountant.
No, what you need to have in that scenario and all of the other tasks and responsibilities that you give up is a means to have oversight and to check what is being done. So we've said this before, and again, we're huge fans of Insight Tax and what John Briggs and the team there does. They're my accountants. They send me a report. They send me a slew of reports every month. They send me a P&L, balance sheet, comparative balance sheets, P&Ls, and then they send me unknown transaction lists in there too, so that I can go through and tell them what that transaction was for, you know, all of that stuff. But I have oversight of it, and if I look at the P&L or I look at the balance sheet, or there's a weird transaction in there that neither one of us know, then we can have a conversation about it. But I'm not going through that anymore. Now, there was a time when I did that, and I was a lot more involved in it, but I don't need to be as involved in it anymore. Like, that's what I've hired them for.
Do you think if there was the opportunity to sign up with something like Affiliate University in 2009, you would have been smart enough to do it? And I don't mean it in a way like, you know, in a goofy way. I simply mean, do box owners realize, even to this day in 2020, that they need a coach?
The short answer is no, I would not have.
what other business are people opening without a mentor? Is that common? I don't know. I mean, most of my businesses have been in the fitness world, and I'm pretty experienced. But if I were going to open a coffee shop,
I just wouldn't have understood the value of it. Because I would have been like most of us. No, I don't really need that. I'm fine. I'll figure it out. But not understanding the true complexity of running a business, but more importantly, running a successful business. Like, what are the pillars of a successful business that I need to be able to really highlight as now the business owner, and what is important and what is not important? Because there was things 10 years ago that I thought were important that are not at all important. Like the Instagram post you put up yesterday, they got people's panties in a bunch about programming. I thought 10 years ago, I thought programming was the thing. I thought it was just literally people. I write these programs, and
it's what separates me from the box.
Separates me from everybody. And now, I mean, we definitely don't do this, but if we were to just, actually program via the hopper, nobody would know any different.
Well, and honestly, part of the reason I put that up is because I'm going to the box here. They follow professional programming, meaning they pay for it. But I look at it, I analyze it, and I'm like, sometimes this is really, really stupid. Like,
I definitely don't want this to be. It's not. There's a fine line when having this discussion about programming, which is.
Yes.
I'm not saying programming is not important. That is not at all what I'm saying. So if that is what you're taking away from any of the posts that we make, that programming doesn't matter, that you've missed the point. Yes, it's meant to be controversial. Like, that's the whole point of all this. But it's what we're trying to really bring light to is that it takes a back seat, if not a back seat, to almost everything else with regard to customer service, how you coach, how you interact with your athletes. It's one of the least important things that matters in your gym. And right. I think Pat Barber has said this very well, which is, a great coach can do a lot with really poorly written programming, but a terrible coach can't do anything with really well written programming. It doesn't matter. It's your ability to use the tool that matters, not the tool.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, yes, really bad programming can actually be dangerous, right? If you're hinging every day, right, or you're pulling every day, etc. We're saying, assuming you're, just like with coaching, safety is the number one priority. Crappy programming doesn't matter. And in fact, I would argue 95% of your members would prefer programming that was quote unquote fun. Like, oh, that looks like a fun one.
100%.
Than dumb stuff, or it doesn't matter to them. But
so I don't want to go on this huge tangent about programming, but it's very similar to functional movements. We talk about in the What is CrossFit lecture, we say, hey, functional movements are safe. Even when done poorly, they're really, really safe. Even when done poorly, they're very, very safe because of the nature of functional movements. Programming, if applied with the principles of variance, is really, really hard to do poorly. So you gave the example of like, we hip hinge every day. Well, that is a perfect example of not applying variance. If I am applying variance to my program, even if I had no idea what I was doing, it would be very, very hard to create the level of redundancy and overuse pattern that would result in injury. It would be very, very hard to do.
Yeah, if you just took the simple old level 1, like GWM programming, and rotated couplets, triplets, chippers, etc., and adjusted the time domains, you'd be fine. But point is, it doesn't matter. And part of the two reasons I thought about it was because I look at some of the programming we hit, which again we pay for. A lot of people know what we follow, but I don't want to put them on blast here. And I'm like, this is dumb. Like, this doesn't make sense to me as someone that's done this a long time, but I still do it. And I see all of these people that show up and get better. Todd and I have spoken about it many times where we're like, even terribly executed CrossFit yields crazy results.
That's why it's so potent.
So going back to just the opening, in 2007, there was no Rogue Fitness. I was either piecemealing together my equipment from, I don't know if you knew this guy, Christian's Fitness Factory on eBay.
I've heard of it, but yeah. I never bought anything from there, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, by the time you open, there's probably a few things, but I was buying those like single squat stands because there was no, and then at the end of every night, you had to kind of like Tetris them together in the corner to minimize how much floor space they were taking.
I mean, it was still hard to get equipment at that point, 2009. I mean, like Pendelay was on the scene, but it still was limited. You know, Rogue was not really a thing at that point. I think they might have been doing like some 1s and 2s here and there, but I mean, it wasn't. They were reselling. Again, Faster was kind of on the scene a little bit.
That's who I wound up using a lot.
A lot of resale stuff, but like, it's amazing. Based on the lack of resources for that business, a CrossFit box, there's a strong argument that it was impossible to run something that would truly resemble a successful business.
Yeah, I mean, how many successful businesses?
Standards.
I had you know me, I know nothing about home improvement, and I'm putting up pull-up bars. And I remember there was one time where I didn't realize. So I was drilling, I was on a racquetball court drilling into cinder blocks, not making the connection that these things were hollow in the middle, right? I'm like, I'm just drilling into concrete. And then I realized, so things are like moving around, like they're anchored in, but they're loose. I was holding the pull-up bar up, so yeah, like how do you expect to open a gym on 800 square feet in the middle of a dilapidated old racquetball facility and grow? Well, turns out if it's yielding results, you can grow. Did I tell you, I think it was last year at the games, Bill Henniger came up to me and he was like, we've known each other a long time. He's like, "Are you Body by Jay, by the way?"
Listen,
did I tell you this story?
Listen, we're going to take a pause here for a second, because for as much as you like to give me shit about talking about playing Division I athletics, which I don't ever bring up, you always bring up, you've told this story no less than 4,385 times.
It's worth telling. It's worth telling. That's why.
You're like my grandfather. Every time he's just like, "Oh, I don't know if I've ever told you this story." And I'm like, only 48 million times.
Yeah, but you know what? Just like your grandfather, just indulge me. Let me tell the story for the listeners that haven't heard. But he came up to me. Christian commented that I bring it up a lot. No one asked you, Christian. So I was at the games and he's like, "Are you Body by Jay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" He was like, "You were our third order ever." So pretty cool that he remembers that. And to this day, I mean, is Rogue Fitness not the most impressive company you've ever seen?
They should do a documentary on Bill and Katie and what they've done.
I think they would if Bill cared to be in the public eye.
By the way, everybody should follow his Instagram. You'll get hungry. Just the amount of food that guy posts on his Insta. You would never know what he does for a living. You would think he was a chef.
What does he have? A Traeger? I want to get a Traeger.
He has everything. He has things that he made that he cooks meat in. I mean, he has like the most robust cooking ensemble I've ever seen in my life.
Imagine you're as smart as Bill Henniger, and 2006-07 rolls along, and you have this engineering degree, and you've probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in education, and your parents are like ready for you to get this real nice cush job, and you're like, "No, Mom, I'm gonna make gymnastic rings.
I'm gonna make barbells, Mom." It's just like, "Oh, our son's a loser.
What a waste of time and money." Meanwhile, they own Ohio now. So
yeah, that's probably not even a stretch. They probably do actually own Columbus at this point.
From what I understand, that area where they their new compound is, they basically bought it all. I don't know.
I know they've purchased multiple city blocks and employ a huge percentage of that local population.
Yeah, I mean, they're just impressive and they're good people. They're just great people. So
yeah, you're talking about people that are running. I don't know what their business worth, but it's a lot. Who still at the games, you're going to see one of them walking around with a hammer or a drill.
Oh, Katie walks around with a helmet on the whole weekend for hammering shit. And here's the other funny part. No one realizes she won the CrossFit Games in 2000.
I know.
No one makes that connection. Like, no one looks up to even knows that.
She also was a Division One.
She was. Where'd she play? Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah.
Yeah, she's legit.
She might be in the Hall of Fame there. I might have just made that up though.
Well, if she is, it's deserved. But anyway, so yeah, we I think we bought their rings, and then again, Faster came out, and I knew John Gilson, and they were a Northeast company, and there's a reason Rogue Fitness we're talking about, and we're not talking about Again Faster. One time a barbell breaks, one of each. Like I had, at this point, a kind of hodgepodge of barbells. The Rogue barbell breaks. Call them up. They legit new barbell like the next day. My Again Faster bar breaks. They sent me like the bearings to it, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, what And
like, how do I even take the sleeve off this thing?
Yeah. So anyway, what were some of the other big factors that you think have changed for you 11 years later? I know a handful of other ones for me, but what else would you say changed from 2009 to 2020?
Just the service aspect of it, top to bottom. I mean, anything that involves service, that has all evolved. I mean, light years. If you think about there was no such thing as a nice gym back in the day. From an aesthetic standpoint, like no gym you walked into, you're like, oh, this place is pretty, it's pristine, it's clean. Everything was a dungeon back in the day.
Do you remember the first box you went to where you thought, this is nice?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't. CrossFit Virginia Beach was not nice, but it was a warehouse just like everything else.
That was Sherwood's box originally, or Tony Blauer's?
So that was Sherwood's box. So there was so he owned CrossFit Virginia Beach, and then Tony Blauer was in the area, and he had a place over off of Viking Drive, which is over by Lynn Haven, which is probably like 15, 20 minutes from here. And he had that training facility, and that was called, what was that called? It was like, I forget what it was called, but CrossFit Obsession was out of there, which was Brendan Gilliam and Allison.
NYC.
Whatever her last name is.
Allison NYC.
They're on Vegas now. Yeah. Right.
There's like some crazy story about them
for
packing their stuff up and like leaving overnight.
Yes, I don't think that story is inaccurate. However, I cannot confirm it. But yeah, there was some weird stuff that happened there. But anyway, so it was like the tactical training center, the like VT, something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was this massive facility where he taught combatives, but they had all the equipment there. They hosted most of the level ones in Virginia Beach there. I mean, it was a massive facility. It's probably 20,000 square feet inside, and he had like an octagon and all sorts of other stuff in there. And then 2009 regionals was there. Well,
and I think it just goes to show the growth of CrossFit. I think, and I've heard Coach Glassman actually say this story where, TJ Cooper from Jacksonville is really was the catalyst behind having seminars. He was using CrossFit, training his police officers, and I think he reached out to Glassman and was like, hey,
CrossFit East.
Right. So that's the point. He
2002. I've got that t-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, he reaches out to Glassman. He's like, hey, we need to get certified or whatever. And there was nothing. And then so Glassman puts this training together.
Just to give reference, like how early this was in the game. So now everybody's like, I can't have zip codes or city names anymore. Meanwhile, TJ Cooper had a cardinal direction behind his, like he had like literally one of the 4 options on a compass. CrossFit East. That's how early that guy was.
And talk about good human beings. TJ Cooper is one of them.
Oh, he's amazing.
But he. The story is Coach Glassman's like, huh? And he kind of hangs up the phone and he's like, whichever wife he was with at the time was like, we're going to have 5 affiliates one day. We're going to have, CrossFit HQ and then North, South, East, West, and I think that goes to show like the Virginia Beach place was kind of their like idea of like, this will be the main one on the East Coast and this will be the main one. So I think the first box that I went to where I was like, this is interesting was South Brooklyn. The first seminar in New York State was at CrossFit South Brooklyn in 2008, and I interned at it. And
was that the same facility they have now?
No, this was like I mean, David Osorio, I think we talked about it on our interview with him, but it was like basically in a music hall, like a recital center. And then the upstairs was like where the bands and whatnot would play. And then you go downstairs and it was his facility, but it was just huge and it was unique. It was kind of like King of Prussia.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like it was like an old movie theater versus, it was just showing like, hey, we can put these in weird places. And, I think that was like, wow, this is big and it's really nice. And as I would visit newer boxes at 8, 9, 10, 11, you also started to see the trend of they all had new equipment, all the equipment matched, it took me 5 or 6 years to the point that I got rid of all of the old stuff.
Right.
I was telling we had a teenager in class the other day and she was on a Model D rower, the blue ones.
Yeah.
She goes, I don't want to use the old one. I was like, old one? I had a Model B. It was wood. It didn't come apart. Like you couldn't stand it up. Like that's old. Like that was like one of those like, I'm officially old now. But yeah, I mean, we bought a Model B off of Craigslist and
Model B. I think I had a Model C here for a while that people really got butthurt about when I sold it. They're like, don't get rid of old glory. No, C had like a really, really old monitor on it.
Oh yeah, the monitor. Yeah, like the model.
And then the handle was wooden on the Model C. The flywheel was totally different on there. Yeah, I mean but that thing's still the only thing that ever went wrong with that thing was the monitor.
Yeah, you can replace that easily. They have an adapter, so like if you have one of those, you can just buy like a PM5 monitor and put it on an old Model C if you want to. Yeah, the Model B was wooden foot pads, so it was wood, and it didn't come apart. You couldn't stand it up. So we're in 800 square feet, and I always had to have this rower down, like no matter what the workouts were. But to your point. It's probably still working somewhere. Whoever bought it from me.
The quality of the equipment they make is kind of mind blowing with regard to C2.
Did I ever tell you my story about the owner of Concept 2?
Probably, yeah.
All right, I'll save it for another time. Yeah. I'll save it.
But I think the biggest thing is there's a couple of things. The whole professionalization of CrossFit. Even as early as 2010, I really don't think the vast majority of people got into that thinking that was an actual true profession that you can make a living in. I don't think that happened for a couple years after, like probably early teens, where people were like, "Oh, I can make a legit living doing this," but that means they were up and running for a decade prior to anybody being like, "Oh, I could actually pay my mortgage doing this."
I honestly believe to this day people are opening boxes with that mindset. We've had people on Affiliate U consultation calls say things like, I don't want to become a millionaire, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, guess what? You're not with that mindset. And
I was talking to somebody last week who said, we're really not. It's not about making money. And I said, well, then you're not gonna make any money.
Yeah, it's like I get it. Like you and I do this. We're on a podcast. It's a Sunday afternoon. We're taking calls every day for Affiliate U. We love it. But don't get us wrong. Like, you have 2 kids. I have a kid on the way. We like eating dinner. Like, you need to be doing this. If you're opening a business, I love the fact that it's passion driven first, but you need to be wanting to make money. So I'm on this call and I'm like, yeah, I get it. When I opened in 2007, my true goal was to make $24,000. I was like, if I make $2,000 a month, I'm fucking rich. Like, this is amazing. Right. Like, because I was making less than that, busting my ass. So I'm like, if I can be at one place all day, doing what I love, I can work out, and flash forward, I sell the box for,
15 years later, you still haven't made $2,000 a
month. I'm getting closer. But, that's where my mindset has certainly shifted. You have to be knowing and wanting to make money in this business for sure.
Well, I get it. So CrossFitters are super passionate. They're for whatever reason almost entirely and universally benevolent in nature. They're just givers by just the virtue of opening a CrossFit gym. And I think there's this massive disconnect, which is going back to the professionalization of CrossFit. But you cannot, I am not aware of a scenario where I can run something in a highly professional manner while absent of the idea of making money. Right? So if your mindset is, in fact, I'm not really worried about making money, then I am willing to bet large sums of money, of J's, that you are not making money.
Well, because if you feel that way, you're not doing the things necessary. I get what you're saying. You're not putting systems in place. You're not spending money to hire a VA so you have more time to do other more important things that you need to be doing. You're treating it like a hobby.
Thought. Yeah, it's a flawed thought. It's a flawed thought. It's just like, oh, I can do this really, really, really well, but not really worry about making money. And my counter argument to that is like, no, you can't. Like, I'm not aware of anything else. But even in the nonprofit world, if you're talking about like, the really good nonprofits that are doing a lot of things, nonprofit, the name is deceiving. They're running a profit. They just don't pay taxes on that. But the ones that do that run very professionally and make a boatload of money. And if they're doing it right, they give away a boatload of money or give away a lot of services. So the mindset is flawed, is that is for whatever reason that I can't be both pragmatic and customer service oriented at the same time. Is that listen, if I'm going to be all about the customer, then money has to be an afterthought. No, it doesn't. And I think that's in either Good to Great or Built to Last, is that they talk about the friction between those two ideas and that they can coexist. And if done really well, it's necessary that they coexist.
Yeah, I think any box that's doing it well is finding that balance of, I still enjoy being here and then making good money.
Right.
So Christian's asking on Facebook.
Yeah, says, I saw that.
And you kind of alluded to it, but because of the uptick in professionalism, do you think the days of hole-in-the-wall gyms is going away? It's kind of different than what you just alluded.
I don't think so, because hole in the wall doesn't insinuate not run well. Like how many hole in the wall bars or restaurants have you been to that hole in the wall, in my mind, just means it's not really well known. It's not on the
underground.
path. It's underground, right? But these places are places that once people find out about it, they seek it out and they go there because it is an amazing experience for whatever reason. So I think even that even there is a slight disconnect, because hole in the wall does not, at least in my opinion, does not insinuate that it's not a well-run business. It just means it's not, I guess, mainstream, but that's not even the right terminology I'm looking for.
Or it's not in an outdoor mall area where people are going to drive by, and you're going to get a lot of foot traffic going by. People might have to hear about it and seek you out. But
I mean, quite frankly, my gym is kind of a hole in the wall. And I don't like, so it's bigger, right? So we have 11,000 square feet here, but we have people that come in here still on the regular that will come in and tell me, I've been working right down the street for a decade and had no idea that you were here.
And and that doesn't mean, I agree with what you're saying. And that doesn't mean you could be the most professional restaurant with your servers wearing, black tie apparel and serving, 5-star cuisine, but in some, quote unquote hole in the wall in Manhattan or wherever.
I mean, listen, let's just take that idea. I think you should be the hole in the wall place that crushes it, that runs an outstanding. So there's a restaurant here in Virginia Beach that's called Steinhilber's. It's been here for something to the tune of like 100 years. Most people don't know it's here, but it is a super high-end restaurant. It's back in the back of a neighborhood on the water, and they do an astronomical amount of business out of that place, right? I mean, it is top-notch in every sense of the word, but it would still be considered a hole in the wall because people come here, or I know people that have been here forever, and they're like, "Where's a good place to eat?" I'm like, "Have you ever been to Steiny's?" And they're like, "Never heard of it." I'm like, "Perfect, here you go."
Well, and when you think about hole in the wall, you also think about what's probably a little cheaper in rent. And I think, going back to our conversation about opening in
maybe I think unique.
Sure, but 2007 versus 2020, boxes were more likely to open in some obscure place like I did. My first rent check was for $850 for a racquetball court. And had I tried to, I remember trying to hire my buddy who was a real estate agent. And I was like, Barry, I need you to find me a place to open the gym. And he was like, dude, go ask Shai, the owner of the building, to rent a court. Like, no one's using it. And, I didn't think that way. And had I not done that, I don't know that I would have been successful, because not having stress about paying rent, or not that I didn't pay rent, but not having this looming $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 payment every month allowed me to really slow grow and do it the right way.
Yeah, it's and there's still some places where you can do that. I've talked to some gym owners where they tell me, we got one in Affiliate U. It's just like, I think she said my overhead is $1,500 total. And I was like, don't ever change, Pony Boy. I was like, just keep that forever, because that's a fantastic model. And it doesn't mean that you can't run an amazing business or charge the value that it's worth.
And I think that's actually one of the problems happening in this day and age, is because CrossFit has become a little more professionalized. We have that, similar to Christian's question, we have that belief like, oh, now I need to look more professional, and that means having a more upscale, more easily available storefront and buying fancy equipment and doing all these fancy things, where at the end of the day, people are coming to you because they have a problem, and they don't give a shit where you're located if you solve that problem.
We had a member who just moved away. She's been with us forever. I mean, if you live, if in Virginia Beach is really big. So I think it's the largest city per square mile in the United States, but you could easily drive 40 minutes to still be in Virginia Beach. So she moved clear across town. She went to another gym, and she said, it's great, but I think I'm going to make the 35-minute drive back there because I just miss it. And I was like, that's what we should all be striving for. That doesn't have anything to do with being a hole in the wall or how nice my equipment is. That has to do with giving a crap and really, really providing people with what is the best hour of their day. And this is where I think people are because there's a little bit of a shift with people moving away from CrossFit to these other models, and for whatever reason, doesn't matter. I would describe them as low skill models, meaning like the skill required to coach some of these models is very, very low. And in doing so, it's starting to resemble more of these chain fitness industries that lacks connection. And to each their own. I'm not mad at anybody for doing that, but you're giving up the one thing that makes CrossFit, not the one thing, one of the core pillars of what makes CrossFit unique. And that is your major strength, is that you're going to have a deep connection with these people. And if you move to some of these other models, when these people move across town, they're not going to come back. They're not going to make the 35-minute drive because there was nothing there. It was just a place where they exercised.
Yeah, and those are the people that think programming is the number one thing. If that's the case, like I said, your members don't care about that. And, maybe to start wrapping up this episode, I think some of the biggest changes from 2007 to 2020 are some of these realizations of, one, this has to be about members first. And two, we need to professionalize this and have some systems in place. And to this day, so many boxes just don't have that. They don't have the systems in place. I mean, I remember going from a notebook collecting payments via cash or check to MindBody Online to Wodify and other things. And that was kind of like my first entry into systems. And then I realized, eventually I had an HR handbook, and, they were hiring and firing and review sheets and everything. And I think that's what people need to that's where the big shift has become over these last 13 years.
And there's a lot of pitfalls that come with that, because you're talking about services that cost money. So again, it's this weird, it's a double-edged sword, which is like, okay, well, I'm not getting this to make money, but if I do want to become professionalism, now I got to spend money, which then requires that I actually make money. And then, so this becomes a bit problematic for a lot of gym owners, because now they don't actually know where to spend their money, which is something that we will talk about a later podcast. But where should you invest your money? Do you know how to bootstrap certain things and still provide the same value to the customer, where they don't know if you use some high-end CRM or if you're using a spreadsheet? The reality is, it doesn't matter which one you use. The only thing that matters is, what does it feel like to the end user? And having been through, I was thinking about this earlier today. I've probably failed at more things than most gym owners have tried in their lifespan.
Same. I think you and we've talked about this in a previous episode where you asked about all the mistakes. We've made them all.
So there's definitely some ways you can help people with, like, oh, should I pay all this money for this? And there's always counter questions there, which is, are you profitable? Is that where you should be spending your money? All of these things, because you can do kind of the, in air quotes, low rent features of all of these things that would be wildly effective, because it's going to force you to pay more attention to it. That's the downfall of automation, is that I can take my hands off of it and then it loses the personal touch to it. But there's a lot of ways you can bootstrap many of these things and actually provide a better product. And then as you scale up, then you actually need to put better systems, more automation. And I hate the word automation, but like just, more systematic technology behind certain things. And that's part of what we help people with in Affiliate U. But that's definitely how would I describe this? That is definitely a pitfall that a lot of people are not aware of. Is when you do start to scale up, there's some problems with that, which is like, you're going to end up, I think I talked about it with Corey, who was with the Gym Solutions. You're talking about your software stack. If you start putting all these things together, that is my software stack, meaning like your Wodify, your scheduling, your backend CRM, MailChimp, all these. You could be talking about on the high end, $600, $700, $800, $1,000 for a software stack that, quite frankly, you don't need and can't afford.
Yeah, and the analogy I would use is, we all have hobbies where we probably buy the equipment that is beyond our ability. You play tennis and you buy that $500 racket, where really you would be just as fine with that $30 racket from Target or, Dick's Sporting Good. And the same is true here. I mean, you had a conversation, as have I, with box owners. We're like, all right, I'm thinking about expanding. And we're like, whoa, yeah, like that's a terrible decision. Like, not that expanding is always bad, but have you thought about the ramifications? Have you thought about what you can, and we'll talk about this in a future episode, because I expanded, as have you, numerous times, but whether or not it's actually the right time to do it.
I have talked many, many people off the ledge of expanding because they don't need to.
And I wish I would have, spoken to you about it in 2000. I expanded for the first time in 2008, which was necessary, but then, a few more times beyond that, where I was like, maybe, or opening my second and third affiliate, whether or not you should do that. So, we've run the gamut of a lot of the changes from 2007 to 2020. I think we both agree the number one evolution in CrossFit has been the professionalism of both the box owner and the coach. And if you're listening to this and you're either a box owner or a coach, you should be doing this because you want to be paid. You want to make the money you deserve, and you need to value yourself. And for so many people, we just don't value ourselves. We're just a coach, no big deal.
Well, I've this, and with all the people that say that, my kind of immediate response to that is, passion has a shelf life. I don't care how passionate you are. At some point, that passion runs dry. Obviously the timeline for some people is longer than others, but it has a shelf life. And if you truly love CrossFit, you should do everything to keep that passion. And that's going to involve running a profitable business that allows you to help more people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great way to wrap it up. The evolution from 2007 to 2020. We are best hour of their day. We're your hosts, Jason Ackerman, Jason Fernandez. If you have questions for us that you'd like to see answered on the podcast, what were you going to say?
I don't like how you're referring to me as Jason Fernandez. Like that's.
What would you prefer? That's your name.
No, my name is Fern.
It is weird that we're both Jasons, because sometimes people get confused when they message us, but you go by Fern. You want me to say it? So it sounds weird to say I'm Jason Ackerman and he's Fern. Like, it sounds pretentious, like you're Cher or Madonna.
I mean, you are pretentious, but that's
But it sounds pretentious about you.
That's my nickname. I can't change that.
Do you want me to go by Ackerman? Like I'm Ackerman, he's Fern?
I want you to go by whatever you want to go by.
I want to go by Fern too.
You can't do that.
All right. Well, if you have questions for Fern or for Ackerman, email us besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. If you're a box owner and you want more information about Affiliate University, also use that same email, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. We booked up all of our phone calls. So if you go on Calendly, you can still book a call, but it's going to be deep into January. Feel free to do that. But if you want to get on a call with us sooner than later and become one of our first members in our alpha class. Is it the alpha class, Fern?
You just made that up just now. Yeah.
First cohort?
Whatever. Yeah. The first group.
If you want to be our first group,
we're going to call them the big winners.
If you want to be a big winner and go through it and you know, in the new iteration of Affiliate University, then the next and greatest version of it, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.